Welcome back to Mondays with Mom, the podcast where my mom, Leah,
Hi.
and I, Jo, dive into her stories, experiences, and the lessons she's hoping I finally take to heart. My mom has always dreamed of turning her life into a book or a movie, and this podcast is our way of making that dream come true, one episode at a time. Right, Mom?
Right, Joey. Thanks for that. And thanks for treating me to an awesome brunch this morning.
It was an awesome brunch. It was a late Mother's Day brunch since you weren't with me on the actual Mother's Day. But
worth the wait. It was really, really delicious. Jo and I did one of these things we like to do where we shared 2 breakfasts or 2 brunches, one fully sweet
yeah, very sweet and deliciously sweet.
with pancakes and Bueno chocolate sauce dripping all over them with
Ice cream, oh, divine.
Totally. And then the other one was a lot more of a serious one, which was
Serious.
brioche bread covered in
Mushroom scramble, which was very interesting to us. And it was the first time I ever heard of a scrambled mushroom. And it was actually very good.
Very, very good. And we took Jo's dog with Zoe, and I think she enjoyed the pieces of bread on the side. And
she is a scavenger of notes, so she'll take what she can get and she'll enjoy every second of it.
Absolutely. So Jo and I were eating and enjoying our good food and admiring, because the place we went to for brunch was a marina. So while we were eating, we were admiring the view, the scenery, the yachts, many, many awesome looking yachts in the background. And I don't know what Jo was doing, but I had my eyes open and I was scouting around for a potential wealthy husband for Jo.
Looking at the yachts, hoping like a hot guy comes off of one.
I wasn't even caring if he was going to be hot. If he came off the yacht and he owned the yacht, Jo, I thought it would be worth an introduction. And whenever I stare at yachts, besides looking out for hunky or non-hunky wealthy yacht owners, I always think of my own husband, because George is a water babe through and through.
Obsessed.
Completely. I'm more of a land-based mammal, like an elephant of sorts, who will go into water occasionally, might even roll around in the mud once or twice, but generally I seem to prefer being on land.
You know, I've never heard that analogy before. It's a good one.
I think it's a really good one.
Yeah.
Now, going back to George, who is a water babe, as I've said, he also is a very traditional type of water babe.
Very nautical babe.
Emphasis on the nautical. But what he absolutely loves more than anything, I mean, he loves being on ships, on yachts. Anybody that knew him in South Africa would know, and even in Greece, would know that he ran this very huge, successful company called Cruises International for many years. So it makes sense that George is all about the water, all about the sea.
Yeah, the sea specifically.
And George is very, very traditional in what he enjoys. So whereas for me, if you had to put me on a yacht, I would go for the most high-tech yacht that parks itself, that...
Do you think yachts can actually park themselves?
Yes, I do. I actually think you get these fancy yachts that actually park themselves, because that's one of the most difficult things when you end up at a port.
Yeah. Wow, okay.
So I would be going for something like that, but not George. George wants to do the work. He wants to tie the ropes. He wants to put up the sails. He wants to sail au naturel with the wind.
He wants to be one with the sea.
One with the sea. And notice that I said with the wind. And so George had been on yachts many times, helping friends of his parents, and he even worked on yachts before he got into the cruising business. Whereas I, on the other hand, being the land mammal that I am, I get seasick. I get very, very seasick. So I'm okay on cruise ships and these bigger vessels that are stabilized, but I don't really do well on sailing boats and row your boat gently down the stream and these miniature little yachts. And George was trying to convince me that if I sailed with him, he would teach me to overcome all these things. And eventually I would be one of these people that are gazing into the horizon, sipping champagne with the sail.
I think that's quite a task, because you're also one of those people that can't face the wrong way in public transport, because that also makes you feel sick. And you also have to be driving a car to not get car sick.
That is quite true. That is quite true. I mean, I'm not a control freak at all. Not at all. So I need to be driving the car, flying the plane, steering the ship, and possibly then my seasickness will go. But the knowledge that I have about sails, I'm actually better off throwing up off the edge of the boat. That's probably better for everybody
Than steering the ship.
than me being the one steering the ship. Now, George had taken a few holidays where he had gone onto these sailboats or little sail yachts, and he found the experience so pleasurable, not because he's one with the sea, so pleasurable that he was convinced that he could let me and Jo and Tina enjoy it as much as he did. So he researched it. It took a lot of convincing, but he convinced me that this would be my introduction into sailing boats. And thereafter, I would never want to travel any other way. He was convinced that this would make me a water babe. And so he planned this itinerary very, very carefully. He handpicked a captain that he thought would be really, really nice. If I'm not mistaken, the captain he picked was South African, even though we were going to be sailing around the Greek islands. So the Cyclades, to be specific, we were going to be in the Aegean. If I'm not mistaken, it was round about August. And George had done the whole study of how we should travel from one island to the other.
He did put a lot of work in and a lot of research in, to his credit. So
He did. And he planned, he had this all meticulously planned that we would begin our holiday in Mykonos. We would fly to Mykonos where we would meet this amazing sailing vessel. We'd get on it. He had described to me what the cabins are going to look like and explained to me that we've got 4 cabins. One will be Joe's, one will be Tina's, one will be mine and George's, and the other one is going to be for all my luggage and all my many accessories. He said I could have a whole cabin full of luggage so that my cabin would feel free and open. I was already starting to like the sounds of this holiday.
even me, I was a bit skeptical in the beginning as well, because I inherited my mom's skepticism.
But not my seasickness.
Not the seasickness, no. But it was starting to sound good to me as well, because the thought of getting my own room on this little sailing yacht was very exciting. Because I think Tina, my sister, could definitely agree that whenever we shared a room on holiday, it never ended well for either of us. There were a lot of arguments that came from who got what covered, who got which bed. So the knowledge that we weren't going to have those fights was very reassuring to me.
Yes, and also very appealing to me. The other thing that really appealed to me was that potentially each one of us would be able to have our own bathroom because all the 4 cabins had a bathroom en suite. And then there was a separate cabin for the crew, which consisted of, as George had it so meticulously planned, a captain and hostess who were a husband and wife team. And I had never seen this before. I mean, I feel if you're going to be a captain and wife hostess team, you really need to like each other a lot.
You're going to be very close together all the time.
They are very close together, and their sleeping quarters are such that you almost have to it's almost like breaking into a house. They get this tiny little window, or I don't know if you call it a porthole because it doesn't come off the
It could
side.
even be a manhole, who knows?
Something like that. And you slide into this thing and you get to sleep there. And then you have a little bathroom that you use, and it's a tiny little bathroom that the crew gets. But I thought that's fine. I'm sure these people are very in love and they know each other really well. And that gives me my spare cabin to do what I want in. And if I'm not that in love or if I get annoyed, I've got a spare cabin. What they do is their problem. And the other part of this voyage that was meticulously planned by George was the order of the trip. And the reason why George specifically wanted the trip to begin in Mykonos and end in Santorini is because he had done a study of the winds. Now, my water babe husband has taught me 1 or 2 things. So what I've learned over the years, and many, many lessons, is that when you sail with the wind, it's an au naturel, very calming, soothing experience, and you're going together with the waves. So it's basically about keeping with the natural rhythm of the water. Going against the wind, on the other hand, has been characterized as the most horrendous and punishing experience
Like
that a vessel and its inhabitants can experience.
Yeah, you're looking for a bad time if you're going against the wind.
You're looking for a bad time, and it's probably going to be the most uncomfortable experience on the water.
Okay, good to know.
So we all started off super excited. I knew I was going to have a cabin and a dressing room, and the captain and his wife would keep each other occupied, and they would be sailing the ship together. And this was all going to be my first introduction to being on a yacht, and I was really, really excited. But for all you guys that have been listening to the episodes of the podcast so far and getting to know me a little bit better, you're starting to understand that things in my life don't necessarily always go as planned. Every now and then, there's like a tiny hiccup here and there that interferes with the plan and gives me these awesome stories to be able to tell on the podcast. And as it always does, this happened in this case as well. The very first thing that happened is we were given a notification that the weather pattern in the week before we were going on the yacht had caused some trouble and had caused some delay. And so the yacht was unable to get to Mykonos.
Oh no.
The yacht had been left.
I mean, I say oh no, and I was aware of this at the time.
Yeah,
I was coming along.
The yacht had been left in Santorini, which to me didn't seem like a big deal, but subsequently understanding that on the map, in terms of the Cycladic islands, Mykonos and Santorini are almost in a straight line. Mykonos is north and Santorini is south. So you would now understand that if you were going to be sailing from Mykonos to Santorini, you're sailing in one direction. And if you're sailing from Santorini to Mykonos, it's a totally different direction. And obviously, that would have affected George's perfect calculation of the wind.
And the waves.
And the waves. Now, I could see that George was a bit upset about this. And I assumed, because George is a Cancerian, and he likes things to go according to his original plan, I just assumed that George is getting upset because someone is messing up with his plans. And the plan was now that we had to fly to Santorini and begin the trip from there and make our way up to Mykonos. Little did I know that George had done the wind calculations and things were not looking good.
Oh no. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. The second thing to go wrong, when we arrived at Santorini, and we were really excited to meet our husband and wife captain team that were coming from South Africa, we heard that the captain, the South African captain, had taken ill. And he was a South African captain who apparently is very familiar with Greek waters. He sailed around the Greek islands many times, and so they gave us a substitute captain who was very sweet, but had never sailed in Greece or the Greek islands before.
Now that I didn't know. I was unaware of this fact until this moment.
That's probably a good thing. And as planned, the captain brought his wife along, but she was just coming along for the journey because their holiday had been ruined because he was suddenly called to be the captain of our vessel. She was not going to be the hostess. So suddenly there was a husband and wife team and an extra person. And there is no way we could put all three of them into that tiny little space that hosts the captain and his wife, nor could the two of them be expected to share a bathroom with the hostess, who also came, a stranger to both the captain, his wife, and us. And they turned round and said to us, "Oh, aren't we fortunate that you guys only need 3 cabins? One for Leah and George, one for Joe, and one for Tina. So the hostess could take the other cabin, aka Leah's dressing room."
I mean, we could have Tina and I shared a cabin at that point to give you the wardrobe.
I felt really bad. I mean, do I put my clothes and my comfort ahead of my children? I could never.
You could.
I could.
You wouldn't, but you could.
I decided, don't worry, I'll handle it. So now all my luggage had to somehow find a way of being packed away in my cabin because I had to give up my dressing room to the hostess, who seemed very sweet and was a blonde version of Pocahontas.
Yeah, those two plaits on either side of her head. But she wasn't as friendly as Pocahontas.
Definitely not as friendly.
She was very British, so she had like, I think she was British, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was British.
So she had that kind of like friendliness where like they're friendly, but it's this kind of curt friendliness. They're very just to the point. They're not doing pleasantries like South Africans do way more pleasantries than the British do.
Exactly. Now all three of them were British. So there were no pleasantries with us or any pleasantries with anyone else. And this dear soul, Pocahontas, decided that it was her place to teach me how to get along with less stuff. She used to get very annoyed with me as to how long it took me to get ready, very annoyed if she felt I was too dressed up, and she used to complain bitterly about how long I spent on fixing my hair. I mean, really?
Not that it had anything to do with her.
It had absolutely nothing to do with it. So already that was something negative, a negative spin on this first yacht trip. Another minor detail that interfered with my plans and my enjoyment of this whole holiday was the fact that George had told me on all the various yachts and sailing yachts he had been on before, every cabin would have these little 12-volt ports where you could plug in various items.
Yeah.
You could plug in your cell phone, you could plug in your iPad, your laptop, all the
Your
technology that you might
portable
need.
charger.
Exactly, all of that. And on this particular one, now I had come very well equipped. I think I had 12-volt adapters, enough to give everybody on the entire vessel. And then we get on and realize that this particular one actually has one 12-volt.
One across the whole yacht.
Across-
not one in one room only.
Across the whole yacht.
Yeah.
And we had to make this very difficult judgment call. Should the captain, who knows nothing about sailing around the Greek islands, be able to charge his phone so that he can communicate with people and ask questions and find out? Or should I charge my phone so I can be in contact with people that I'd like to be in contact with? Should Joe and Tina charge theirs because, social media is an important thing. You've got to post pictures on Instagram. Should the hostess post? No, the hostess got no right to post. It would take her too long to get ready. And who would actually be able to use this? And it became a scramble. We would all walk past the charger, and the minute the captain's phone was fully charged, it was a race to the death. Who could actually be the next person to use that one 12-volt charger?
And it wasn't only that there was just 1-volt charger, Mom. I don't know if you remember this. It was also that they were like kind of giving you like looks and like pressuring you because it was a sailing yacht, meaning that like they had a limited amount of electricity. So they were wanting to conserve that till they were at a port where they could charge it.
That's right. I mean, the number of times I got into trouble for using my flat iron. Plus, the other thing that was a little bit challenging is because the captain didn't know his way around. He was very, very anxious to get to the following harbor as soon as he could because he didn't have the self-park function. So he wanted to get there early and make sure there was space. He hadn't really navigated the various Greek ports, which it is good to have experience of because they don't function the way normal ports do. Things get a little wild and you got to scream at people and occasionally push someone else out the way. And the captain was constantly very, very anxious. So we would be swimming somewhere or enjoying the scenery and he'd kind of be tapping his watch that, listen, we better go. And one of the occasions that he was tapping his watch, he probably should have tapped it a lot sooner. Because on the way, I don't even remember where we were sailing from and where we were going, but we encountered weather conditions.
Oh, terrible, horrendous.
They can only be likened to the perfect storm.
It felt like we were Odysseus on a raft, like holding on for dear life.
This was unbelievable. If anyone has watched The Perfect Storm, which I have no doubt you have, considering the fact that George Clooney plays the captain, That means most people have watched it. And for Greek people out there, because Greek people always change the titles of these movies. For the Greek people out there, the movie's called Kategoida. And this storm was the perfect storm. Anybody that has watched this movie will know that near the end, you just see this boat going vertically up a wall of a wave. And when they get to the top, you know what's going to happen. And I also know what's going to happen now. I think Jo also knows what's going to happen. I promise you guys, you start climbing those waves and then suddenly your ship comes crashing down.
Oh, it's awful.
Yes, it's awful and jarring. And you actually have the sensation that your boat is going to split in half.
Yeah, you feel like your boat is going to capsize, that you're going to become shipwrecked. And honestly, because of how much you're being shoved around, don't even care at that point. You cannot find it in yourself because you're feeling, me especially, I don't get seasick. And I was feeling so sick from all these waves and being shoved around. You know that water and the sea are powerful, but you don't realize how powerful until you're subjected to its power.
And anyone that knows the movie The Perfect Storm, they realize that it ends in disaster and everybody dies. Everybody's lost at sea.
Whoa, Mom, spoilers.
So I'm still around to tell the tale. Initially, what I did, because it didn't kind of start from zero and became the perfect storm. It started off with a bit of smashing, crashing down on the waves, a little bit of discomfort, and being up on deck. George kept telling me that the best place to be is up at the top. But when you were sitting up at the top, the waves, the water would come crashing over you. You would get sopping wet.
The mast is swinging around of this humongous sail that you might get whacked in the face.
You've got to keep ducking in case it hits you. You've got to sit in one particular spot. And the captain is okay because he is holding onto the steering. The rest of you, and I thought, I can't take this. I thought what I was going to do is take one of these anti-nausea pills, but I thought instead of one, I'm going to take 3 and see if it can put me to sleep. And I'm going downstairs. So I went downstairs, which is one of the worst places to be. You
really feel the hitting of the ship on the waves.
You feel it more than anything because you're right there. And I initially went into my cabin, which had all the suitcases and everything packed on the shelves because they weren't in my dressing room. Pocahontas had that. And I went to Tina and found her, and Tina looked green and queasy and terrible. And at the time, I had downloaded, on one of the rare occasions that I could steal the 12-volt, I had downloaded the series Suits. And I thought, this will help Tina and I get our minds off the storm. So we're going to actually sit together in my bed and watch this. So I called Tina. We kind of got flung around from here to there, checked on Jo, who had said, no, she's still got everything under control and she'll be working on her laptop for a bit.
How wrong I was.
How wrong you were. Now, just on a side note, minus the 12 volts, the other thing that George hadn't warned us about on this particular yacht was that it wasn't of the modern kind. So the modern yachts, when you go to the toilet, you press a button and the toilet bowl fills with water, and then you press another button and it empties. I don't want to know where it all goes, but it empties. And so that's how it worked. When you are on one of these manual ones, what you have to do is lift this lever up and down and up and down, and you pump water into the bowl, and then you pump it back out. I used to call it facetiously pumping the poop.
It's like the Black Eyed Peas, pump it.
Something like the Black Eyed Peas. We're not going to go into details. So Tina and I were down under in my cabin, high on antiemetics, trying to watch Suits. I'm not sure how much we had watched. We were kind of dozing off. The boat was crashing against the waves. It was literally crashing. It felt like punishment. I was absolutely convinced that this boat was going to split into two pieces. And I just didn't know which two. I was trying to work out whether I would be on the same side when it split as where Jo was, or whether I'd be on the side as Tina. And at some point, straight after this cracking sound of the boat, I hear a crashing sound. And I'm convinced it came from Jo.
Now, you may also be wondering, why wasn't I included in the suits plan? And the answer is, I'm not sure. I just was excluded.
Apparently, you were studying at the time.
Yeah, I did. I had final exams straight after that holiday. So I said I was going to study. Little did I know that there was not going to be any studying going on while I was like worrying for my life.
Exactly. So I, as a very decent, overprotective, and amazing mom, when I heard the crashing sound, I thought, I have to go and save Jo. And I sat up because you couldn't actually walk past the bed in this cabin.
You had to crawl.
You had to crawl. But as I sat up, and even in my delirious state on my overdose, I thought, I'm getting to my child. Nothing can keep me away from this child, until the suitcases started falling off the sides and I was knocked on the head.
Because, like, to give you like a good picture of what this cabin looked like, it was basically a bed that took up the whole floor. So you had to crawl onto this like queen size bed or double size bed, and then they had little shelves where you could store the suitcases because there was no other storage in the room. And my room was different. It was like a single bed as double bunks. So there was a bit of space to walk around, which is why...
And you could store your suitcase in the bottom bunk.
Yes, which is why there was a crashing sound. Like you wouldn't probably hear as loud of a crash coming from the room that you were in because it would land on the bed. But yeah, mine was landing on the wooden like floor. So there was definitely a loud crash.
Well, I think there could have been a crash from our cabin as well, because the suitcases didn't land on the bed. They landed on my head. And in fact, I was knocked unconscious for a couple of seconds. So I was knocked unconscious, lying on the bed. I don't remember what happened in Suits, but I woke up in this blind panic thinking, I have to find Jo. And you guys don't understand. Getting to Jo, it must have been, Jo's cabin was probably
like 3
meters away, maybe 2 meters away, but it felt like the journey of 1,000 miles. I was being flung against the equipment. I was being flung against the dining room table. To just get to Jo took every ounce of my strength. And I walk in, and what I saw, Lord help me. Jo's laptop was on the floor. Jo was on the floor. I don't know which one the crash was. And obviously, Jo, who doesn't get seasick, even she has a limit. And Jo had gotten sick. Obviously, the child was very good. She was older. She had gone into the bathroom.
I tried.
She meticulously pumped up the water, threw up, and just before she had the opportunity to pump the water out, we got hit by another wave. And the entire contents of that toilet bowl came flying out and were all over the floor.
It was awful.
You guys do not understand. Anything I tell you is going to minimize this. It was a disaster of epic proportions. Somehow, I saved Jo and the laptop.
Yeah, the laptop was okay, considering it fell off like from a meter in the air.
Yes, and I took both the children into my cabin, and I felt like that mother. Everyone must know the scene in the Titanic when there's the mother that realizes that there's no chance she's going to get out, and she holds her children close and reads them a story. So I took my two children. I thought, okay, there's no way we're making it out of this alive. If George Clooney couldn't do it, we can't do it. And I hugged my two children, and instead of reading a book, because there was no way I could concentrate to read, I put Suits in front of them, and hopefully that would be something pleasant that they could remember.
I did not remember anything about Suits.
Ultimately, the only reason we survived that was a pure miracle.
It had to be a miracle. There was nothing else.
There was absolutely nothing else. And once the storm had subsided, George came downstairs. Firstly, to say, it would have been much better upstairs, when I know for a fact, had I been upstairs, I would have been overboard and lost. Nobody would have ever found me again. So at least downstairs, we could all stay in a contained area and we weren't lost in the ocean. And George looked like a drowned rat. Water was dripping over every surface of his body. His hair was matted to him. He had seaweed coming out of his ears. He literally looked like he had been shipwrecked.
He may have looked shipwrecked, but I also remember him looking very happy that he had experienced this.
And probably even more happy that he actually survived it. Because it's one thing to experience it and another thing to come back and tell the tale.
I guess so.
George Clooney's character disappeared and could never tell the tale. So that was my introduction to the awesome activity and the kind of holiday you can have sailing around the Greek islands in August. Needless to say, I think it took me another 4 years, possibly 5, before I was convinced to go on another yacht. And this time I had my needs. The plugs, the toilets, how the toilets function, who the hostess is, whose room the hostess is allowed to be with, what health status does the captain have, and is he going to bring his wife along just for fun?
And will I get the space of a cabin for my clothes?
That's exactly it.
And on that fun note, maybe it's time to talk about the lessons that we can take from the story.
Well, for me, definitely. I would say that a good lesson to know is that sailing yachts are designed for sailors, not for regular people like you and I.
I would say that a lesson I learned is that the sea is a major force to be reckoned with and should not be messed with.
That's very true. Another one would be, no matter where you're going, always sail in the same direction as the wind.
Yeah, that's an important lesson.
And finally, I would say, if 12 things go wrong before your holiday even begins, consider canceling it.
Yeah, take it as a major sign.
But we still are grateful. We still have a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah, we're grateful for the privilege that we even get to go on any sort of holiday that involves a yacht, even a sailing yacht or any sailing vessel.
Yeah, we're very, very grateful. Thanks, George, for that.
Yeah, thank you, George.
We are very grateful that we've survived to tell the tale and to share our wisdom with other people.
I'm grateful that I passed those exams after this holiday, even though I barely got any studying done.
I'm grateful for that too. And I'm also grateful that this experience taught me which kind of yachts I really enjoy sailing on and which ones, let me rephrase that, which kind of yachts I really enjoy being on and which yachts I should rather leave to the water babes.
To the sailors.
Absolutely.
And on that note,
it's been great fun, guys.
We'll catch you again next week.
Thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe if you're enjoying the podcast.
Yes, and also comment, tell us your holiday stories. I'm sure there's lots of you out there that have your own crazy stories to tell.
And we look forward to chatting again with you next week.
Absolutely.
Bye.